Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about one of my favorite episodes of the year, our preseason breakout player list. We do this once every year in the preseason. We try to pick some rising stars. We try to pick some guys becoming starters. We try to pick some young guys. A little bit of everything in the mix here, and I'm really excited to have the conversation with Bryce. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? Just got home from the little man's flag football game. Our youngest, who is 6 and in kindergarten, had his first flag football game, got suspended on Tuesday, postponed, rescheduled, and he lost his mind. Like, you thought the world was over because he wasn't going to get a play. Rescheduled for tonight. Little man had a pick 6, got an interception, took it to the house in his first game. So he is on cloud 9 right now.
That is amazing. I love it. You always love to hear success stories after terrible things that occur for people.
Unbelievable.
Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about here before we kind of jump into the breakout players thing is I did want to talk a little bit about just very, very briefly, like we're going to do the Kawhi thing for like 2 minutes at the top here. So Pablo Torre of Pablo Torre Finds Out, show licensed by The Athletic, everything like that, released another episode today. On this one, he kind of brought receipts and like a paper trail a little bit in terms of some of the questions that people had. I thought it was pretty compelling, to be honest with you. Ultimately, kind of where I'm at on this is I think that there is enough now to where they can certainly be penalized. What the extent of that penalty will be dependent upon how strongly the other owners, decide to pressure Adam Silver on the evidence that has been portrayed and how strongly they want to go down the road of, hitting Steve Ballmer for cap circumvention. I kind of think that that's like the reality of where the story sits right now. And I don't know if that's like all that interesting of a conversation. Like, I think Pablo has presented enough now to where it's very clear that there is enough circumstantial evidence here. Unless he finds like some crazy smoking gun, like I think today's episode was just like, okay, this is very clearly there's enough here to do something to them if they want to. And it's just going to depend on how much the owners want to pressure Adam Silver into doing it and how strongly Adam Silver feels about cap circumvention. He can talk a big game, but the reality is he's never gone through a situation like this for us to understand where he's at on it. And that's kind of where it sits right now. Like, I would suggest everybody go watch Pablo's episode. I don't need to like go through all the facts. He laid out an entire timeline of everything. I would rather just point people there to watch the entire thing, but it just comes down to what the owners want to do at this point and how strongly they want to pressure Adam Silver.
That's kind of where I'm at as well, in terms of, I feel like I realize we need to talk about it. I realize we need to bring it up. And, Pablo continues to either has held things back and then presented new, or, in this one almost seemingly was given the carrot and, took it and went with it and uncovered some more. But I'm with you where it's like, okay, there's obviously enough here to punish the Clippers. You've said this over and over, like NBA has to do the full investigation. We can't be 12 months from now after a punishment is handed down and then more stuff comes out. So they have to do their due diligence. But like for me in general, I'd rather just fast forward to this is all of the proof or evidence or whatever. And this is what they're going to do to Ballmer, the Clippers, Kawhi, and then us discuss what that is, whether or not we agree with it, and the ramifications that has on whether it's this NBA season, the next NBA season, or quite frankly, what's going to be multiple NBA seasons for the Clippers. And that's kind of where I'm at. Is like, I feel like I just want to fast forward to what is the punishment, and then let's discuss the fallout of that and what that means for the Clippers and potentially other NBA organizations.
The one piece of evidence that Pablo reported today that I will say that like I just don't really see an explanation for right now. You know, maybe something will come up. Who knows? You know, the Clippers will get a chance to defend themselves. But the fact that Ballmer decided to invest $10 million at a price point of like $22 a share when this company was like very clearly going downhill, that just feels completely like wild to me in so many ways. I don't understand why that would occur. And that feels really, really hard to defend, in my opinion. So
part of the reason why they needed it to be that number was because he has to stay under a certain percentage ownership of a company, right? That is a sponsor of his NBA team. So it's 5%, right? He can't go over 5%. So to get to the money that it seemingly he needed to give aspiration, he needed to go in at share, per share higher, so he didn't get too many shares. Do I understand that correctly? That's
certainly my read, but it doesn't make it a sound investment. You know what I mean?
No. I was just explaining why he had to do it at that number.
Totally.
Because now it looks really weird, is a little bit of something that stands out. So
yeah, it definitely stands out. That is true, Bryce. It definitely stands out. Okay. That's really all I've got on the Kawhi thing. I don't need to dive deep into that. The second thing I wanted to talk about is just the Kobe Bufkin trade very briefly.
Yeah.
So the Atlanta Hawks traded Kobe Bufkin to the Brooklyn Nets. They got cash considerations in return. This entire thing is just about getting Kobe Bufkin's money off the books, in my opinion. That's just the situation that Atlanta found itself in. And more than like Kobe Bufkin specifically as a player, and I think that we can talk about Kobe maybe at the end here and if he's interesting, why he's interesting, everything like that. I almost more want to talk about just like the mechanics of how this stuff is happening right now and why I think we're going to see more teams give up on rookie contract players earlier, more consistently. So Kobe Bufkin was set to make $4.5 million this year. $6.9 million on a team option next season. $6.9 million. Like we can talk about the cap going up, but for a player that you don't know is good, because Kobe has dealt with an incredible number of injuries at this point. It's been incredibly unlucky that he's had to deal with these things. I think we just don't know if he's good or not is the reality, as opposed to like he's not good and the Nets are taking a flyer on him maybe being good down the road. I think we just don't know with Bufkin at this point. I saw some things at Summer League that I was interested in. We'll talk about it at the end. But if you're the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Hawks very clearly this summer moved into a different level of contendership, right? On top of that, they're about to get expensive. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Trae Young. Trae Young is still not signed past this season. He does have a player option for 2026-27, but I mean, he could enter the free agency market and be a very real max candidate for a number of other players or other teams, I would imagine. Dyson Daniels has an extension coming up that they have to do, I think. Dyson Daniels has become a critical part of their team. He's a starting caliber player. We ballparked that extension at somewhere between $25 and $30 million on the last episode. I think that that's probably where it's going to settle in at. They also have Kristaps Porzingis, who is not signed past this season. If they want to retain him, that gets complicated. But right now, the Atlanta Hawks on their books for next season already have, including Trae Young's option, so that number probably goes up if you made me bet, about $136 million against the cap of 165. That does not include the Dyson Daniels money that will put them basically right to the salary cap. Does not include the Kristaps money, which would be at least $25 million, I would venture. And then does not include guys like Luke Kennard, does not really include some of the other, guys that they're going to have to get to fill out the rest of the roster, right? So if you add that $7 million for Bufkin into the mix, it actually gets like somewhat complicated for them to stay under the aprons at that point. So the problem is, though, that they have to make this decision now as opposed to later. Because if you decline Kobe Bufkin's option, as we saw with Jake LaRavia last year, he just loses all value at that point. And you can say that the Hawks didn't get any value for him anyway, but they didn't have to pay to get off the deal either, which again, we don't know if Kobe Bufkin is good or not. We figured out eventually that Jake LaRavia is a valuable player and is useful, but we just don't have any answer on Kobe Bufkin yet. So the reality is that I think that because the aprons are as punitive as they are, and because the rookie scale is going to continue to rise and rise and rise. Kobe Bufkin went 15th overall in the draft, if I remember correctly, and he's still making $6.9 million in his fourth year. You really need answers on if that guy is going to be good or not to pay him $6.9 million, given where they are in their build at this point. So to me, this is just purely a financial decision for Atlanta, and it's a financial decision that I think kind of makes sense for them. Even though they did not get anything for Kobe Bufkin, I kind of think that it's a decision that they had to make in order to free the money up to be able to do what they have to do in terms of extensions this coming summer.
Well, and I mean, when you talk about the rookie scale numbers, you look at Zach Risache's, obviously, rising in the lottery matters, but he's on, his deals are going to be 14 next year and 17 and a half the year after. And do they not have, isn't that the Pelicans pick to them next year?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you're Atlanta front office, aren't you baking in at least a lottery pick projection, if not a top 10, if maybe a top, that's real salary cap and in a positive way. But whenever you're talking about, well, why would you need to open up 8 million? Well, if they get that pick where you think it might, that's going to eat up all of that and a little bit more potentially. So when you talk about filling out the roster, that's just, making a draft pick next year, and obviously a very good thing, but opening up the money. So, I heard this at Summer League a little bit. Whenever I was talking to somebody, I was like, man, we went through the Hawks roster and, all of that. And it's and Bufkin, and they're like, I don't know if Bufkin's actually in the rotation right now, and mentioned even I always say his last name wrong.
Vic Krejci.
Krejci, Krejci may be over him in the rotation even. And so I was a little bit surprised, but not as much after having that conversation at Summer League that, hey, maybe he may not even be over him in this rotation. And that's after the Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Luke Kennards.
Well, and this is kind of what it comes back to now. Luckily we're entering a bit of a different phase with NIL and everything, and these guys in college being able to get paid. I don't think it will be as necessary for players to enter the NBA as quickly as they used to. But, these guys that were pre-big NIL dollars, and Kobe Bufkin was still pre-massive NIL money even, they kind of were just forced to enter the NBA to get paid.
Yeah.
And it's exceptionally hard to be 19 to 21 years old in the NBA. That's the reality. There are precious few of those players that are ready to play in the NBA. And it doesn't mean that Kobe Bufkin won't be ready to play in the NBA at some point. It's just that he's not ready right now. And it's hard to keep those guys on your books making $7 million if they're not ready to play in the NBA at this point. The contract clock, it starts very soon. And another piece of this, by the way, is that because expansion hasn't occurred yet, I think we're in the biggest backlog and overall talent, boost and boon that the NBA has just ever seen. The league is more talented than it's ever been. So that makes contract clocks go quicker as well, because Atlanta has 2 rookies potentially coming in next year. Yeah. That, might be the 5th overall pick and might be the, 23rd overall pick or something like that. And then you also already have on this roster, by the way, in terms of young guys, You have Nikola Jurisic. You have Mo Gay. You have Asa Newell. Like Dyson Daniels is still only going to be 23 next year. You have Ricochet, who's still only going to be 21 next year. And again, this team's like kind of trying to compete right now, or at least like take the level up in terms of competing. Maybe not competing for like an NBA Finals, but they're competing at least to level up and be like a top 4 seed in the East, right? So that then becomes an incredibly young team as well. And contract clocks, like guys get replaced. You need vets on your roster to try and contend. It has nothing to do with Kobe Bufkin like not being an interesting player. It just has to do with the economic realities of where the NBA is, in addition to the fact that contract clocks are just going to go quicker and quicker and quicker now until expansion comes and we get these 30 extra roster spots that I think are kind of necessary for the league as a whole, depth wise.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think if I'm Atlanta in general, I would love to keep a player like Bufkin. But because listen, I was a Bufkin guy. I liked his game coming out of Michigan.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought maybe he was a year early. Like for me, I thought he really like showed strides. But the injury stuff has been an issue. But I think, talking about where they're transitioning into like really trying to compete, or what looks like they're really trying to load up to compete this year, is a huge aspect of this. And like you said, then the young players, the draft picks coming up, it's just like where are the developmental minutes for him if he's not in the rotation? And so if you can get off that money before, like you said, it becomes something you have to attach assets to get off of or something like that, it probably makes sense. So for me, it's not like I definitely would not be giving up on Kobe Bufkin if I was the NBA. And I'm fascinated to see how this works out in Brooklyn. The jokes galore with all of the young guards there with the Nets. And I hope even with all of that, he still gets a chance. He's healthy, because I did think he was a talented player, like a potential two-way guard that could, play a little bit on, a little bit off the ball, wiry, very left-hand dominant, had to figure out the weak hand. But I was definitely intrigued by him and thought he was going to be a good NBA player. And it hasn't shown to be that yet. But I think getting an opportunity to do so would serve a team well.
And look, he's dealt with significant injuries the last 2 years. This is a home run for the Nets. Like, you absolutely take on Kobe Bufkin's $4.5 million this year, and I think you opt into the option at 6.9 next year, and you just say, hey, let's see what it looks like. Just in terms of his game, I really like the feel for the game. I buy him as a shooter long term. I think he plays a very direct game, like makes very quick decisions, likes to drive in straight lines. I think he's one of those dudes that like always profiled to me as somebody that plays really well, both on and off the ball, right? Like that ability to shift. Hey, you can be like the 6'4" point guard next to a star, or you can be the off guard playing next to like a primary point guard, right? Like that was kind of my vision for him as a player. And I thought he would play really well next to stars because of how well-rounded that game was. Whether or not, that bears itself out, we'll find out. But home run for the Nets to go for it. I think that he's worth a flyer for them, and just needs to continue to get stronger is the reality. Like he has to get stronger. At Summer League, I thought that he passed the ball pretty well. I thought that he got to the foul line pretty effectively. I thought there were some process things that kind of drove me crazy in terms of just not always kind of mixing the two things together in a real way. But you'd like to see him shoot a little bit better as well. But again, like this is an athletic guard that's worth a flyer.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, now let's get to breakout players.
Okay.
That's really all we got here. Now we're going to get to the meat of the episode. That's the stuff that we needed to talk about up front, the newsy stuff. But every year we do this exercise. Every year, I'll ask you how you do it in a second here. I kind of try to pick like 1-star level player that I think is going to take the next step. A guy that's going to become like a starter and like a really, really good starter. A guy that's going to take the level from like starter into maybe not like an all-star, but like really, really high level player. And then I try to pick like a couple of young guys that I really like. How do you kind of go about this, Bryce? Because obviously there are just so many different players league wide you could pick from.
Yeah, so I looked at mine from last year, where I think the three guys I brought up were Christian Brown, Jaden Ivey, and Brandon Pajimski. Varying results on those. And then I had all NBA, all-star / top 3 player on the team, role players, and out of nowhere type players, which funny enough, Kobe Bufkin was on that list for me last year. I ultimately went with Trey Mann and Tumani Kamara, so I got one of those right. So this year I kind of piggybacked off that. So I went guys that, all NBA, guys that haven't made all NBA yet that I think maybe on path to that. I have a category of all-star team / awards. So I'll explain that with one of the guys where I don't think he's an all-star, but could be in play for a major award, the starter thing. And then I just said like role players, which is going to be mostly young guys that find themselves in a successful role this year for their team.
So last year I picked Jalen Williams, Amen Thompson, Nikola Jovic. I had Dyson Daniels. I had a couple of other guys like Andrew Nembhard, and I think I had Lonzo on my list too. Just
I had Lonzo on mine. I had Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard.
Yep.
Keon Ellis, Jordan
So,
Miller.
Yeah,
Jordan Miller.
We had some fun.
Yeah.
We had some fun names here.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think we did pretty well, honestly. Christian Brown took a big leap. J-Dub became an all-NBA guy, which was like my star bet. Amen Thompson took a massive leap.
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey just got hurt.
Injured.
But, maybe wasn't quite on that runway.
Sure.
Deuce McBride just continued to, do what he does, play high-level defense, be an awesome player. And then Jovic didn't really kind of work out, I would argue, on my end too. And then a few other guys like kind of, Pods didn't really take the right step forward.
I was gonna say, I feel like when you take out the guys that got hurt, Pods was probably my biggest miss in terms of like really taking a step forward. I feel like a lot of the other guys, I have Trey Mann bold and other underline. So maybe I went Trey Mann, and that was injury as well. So I feel decent.
He got hurt. I would argue that Trey Mann looked like he was kind of on the way.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah. So I feel decent about the names we brought up last year.
I feel pretty good about it. Yeah. I think it was pretty solid. So again, last year you got the floor to start. I'll give you the floor this year. Who's your first pick?
Where do you want me to go? Like, do you want me to start with my all NBA guy, role play? Like you pick the category for me at least.
Let's go top end first.
Okay, so my all NBA guy is Paolo Banchero. Like this one is super easy.
This was also my okay, this guy's taking a leap into superstardom.
Yeah,
this year.
I've been a huge fan of Paolo. Even going back to that draft, he was my number one guy in that class before I was really doing big boards. And people know that I didn't do full big boards until I joined this podcast. And then obviously that is a must at this point. I don't know that Paolo gets quite the credit for the numbers, at least he's put up. Like we've rattled off the playoff numbers even for him, Sam, that are just ridiculous. But even the regular season, last year he probably, I don't know. I think he had a decent chance to make all NBA if he comes close to the game. He didn't even come close to the game. So that was a big part of it. I just think with the addition of Desmond Bane, I think with that team probably finishing top 3 in the East, and for me, him being the guy there, I think this is, I don't always love the comparison, but it's the Cade Cunningham jump, where this guy's always kind of been there. And then now everybody's really going to see it. The efficiency will be better and the winning will happen.
So 26 points, 7.5 rebounds, 5 assists last year on 45, 32, 73. Really, as soon as Paolo starts shooting the ball at a higher level, the breakout's happening. That's the reality. He's going to be an all NBA player as soon as the shooting efficiency works itself out. Look, can he hit a certain level as a shooter? I think he can. I think we see enough difficult shot making from Paolo to where it's reasonable to buy into that. But the big thing for me in terms of why Paolo is going to make this leap is I have always seen him as one of the truly great mismatch creators in the NBA. It's just hard to put anybody on him. Like they're just precious few players that can deal with his mix and blend of power, coordination, fluidity, balance, and also like has some explosiveness here and there. It's just genuinely difficult to deal with this guy when he's like sitting at like 6'10" to 6'11", and you have to, okay, like he's just going to put his shoulder into you and he's going to be able to get to a mid-range jumper literally whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Is the reality. Now, the thing is, previously with Orlando, I thought that while it's difficult to know who you can put on him in order to get him to like not get to his mid-range shot, I've always thought that the way Orlando played, being like very big and, you know, having Paolo at the 4 and Franz at the 2 sometimes, then like Tristan Da Silva out there and Wendell Carter, and then whatever they're doing at point. Sometimes it's Anthony Black, sometimes it's Jalen Suggs, right? Like it was just really hard for him to get like a true mismatch on a guard, right? Because teams would just kind of be willing to play pretty straight up because they had a lot of non-offensive players out there on the court, or guys that were non-creators out there on the court. With Jalen Suggs back, who's a real transition creator, and I think that what Jalen does really well is pushes the ball in transition, enforces cross matches, which feeds into Paulo's ability at a really high level. And now getting Desmond Bane is just an absolute monster in terms of being able to play both on and off the ball. Like you can play him in ball screens, you can play him as a screener, you can play him, you know, you could run like all sorts of really fun, like 4-2 actions where, you know, Desmond Bane is just, you know, slipping the screen or ghost screening and then just shooting out to the wing. And you're making defenders make this really, really difficult decision. Okay, do you just switch it? Great. Cool. We got the 2-man on Paolo now. We're going to be able to go to town and feel really good about this, right? Okay, do we not switch it? Do we try and play it like more straight up? That feels like a really difficult situation to deal with as well to me. So I think that getting the spacing and shooting in the real offensive weaponry around Paolo is going to be massive for him. It's just going to be absolutely massive. The level of actions that they can run now is just, it's so different than what they used to be able to run, I think, when they didn't really have like a genuine floor spacing shooter out there that had to get guarded all the time like they have with Desmond Bane now.
Yeah, and I think Paolo's passing is a little underrated. I don't think
Totally agree.
He's not at the level of Cade Cunningham and Luka and Trae Young and those guys like that, right? Like he of like primary offensive hubs. He's not that level, but I think he's better than, you know, career 4.5 assists and 2.9 turnovers. And so I'm really fascinated. And that's what is exciting about what Orlando did is he should have that around him with the floor spacing of Bane. You know, hopefully Suggs gets back with his jump shot. I know Franz jumper is still a struggle, but Franz is maybe the best cutter in the NBA and is obviously able to cut off of Paolo. And we've talked about this Orlando team all the time about the amount of cutters and off-ball movers. And so I think just Paolo with the ball at the top of the key, whether it's attack, hit the mid-range jumper, especially if it's against a mismatch, back you down and score, or have floor spacers with cutters, could just be, it could be a very, very efficient spot for the basketball to be in for the Orlando Magic. And just real quick, post All-Star break, Paolo averaged 29 a game on 47, 33, 78, and he was third in the NBA in free throw attempts per game. I just think he's a handful for defenses. Also, I mean, I think his defense, he's never going to be asked to be, you know, guard the other team's best player, second best player, whatever. But I think he can find an impact on that end of the floor with his size, his ability to play as a low man and contest with verticality, grab rebounds, those type of things. So maybe a little jump defensively as well, you know, would really solidify him in this all NBA type conversation.
I think that that's absolutely right. Look, I'm just expecting, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, I think that getting Desmond Bane in the mix will allow them to hopefully just run more structured offense. Because I feel like when I've watched Orlando, by and large, they just haven't gotten a chance to like really run structured offense because they don't have a ton of like creators out there next to Paolo, next to Franz. So it's often just, okay, we're going to run like high ball screen. We're going to run mid post action for Paolo to be able to get him in the spot where he really likes it, because we just need to create a shot on the court at some level. Having Bane out there as like another creator, getting another year of growth from Franz, and hopefully getting another year of growth from Jalen Suggs as he continues to become better and better, even though he's coming off of injury as well. I think that all of it is additive to Paulo's game, as opposed to like, oh, his usage is going to go down. Maybe slightly, but I don't know, man. Like, I think he's just such a handful and such a mismatch nightmare that the reality is that he's just going to continue to go down that road.
Yeah, I don't see that. I'm with you. I like that word additive of Bane, because Bane doesn't have to have the ball in his hands, right? To me, all of these other guys are, if the ball needs to be in their hands because you want to run some sort of other action, or Paolo is tired or he's struggling or whatever, they can. These guys are not have to have the ball in their hands type of players. And so I think it works really well. I think his usage is as much as, I think what they can do is they can find the sweet spot of usage and efficiency with Banchero this year, and they can find that sweet spot. And then whatever that needs to be is how they can play. And then everybody else fills in their usage and on ball reps around that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I'm just really, really excited to watch Paolo and the Orlando Magic this year. I think they're probably the team that I will be most looking forward to tracking early in the season. Is kind of where I'm at. Like, I will be watching their preseason games because I want to see like kind of how their structures look, and if they are implementing more like consistently structured offensive sets and things like that that don't force Paolo into being asked to just create inefficient shots all the time. And like, look, I think there is a reality here that, you know, we might come to learn this year that Paolo is somebody that is just going to kind of break down offenses and hold the ball and dribble the air out of the ball a little bit. But I'm not there yet with him. Like, I think he can play in a structured offense and make it work. I think he's too good of a passer and too good of a playmaker to like just completely rule that out at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, before we move to the next guy, and my first choice here, really Paolo was my first choice, but Bryce ended up stealing him from me. We got to talk about Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is just such an amazing sponsor of this show. I am such a coffee guy that, you know, as soon as Trade reached out, I was just so happy to get a chance to work with them because as the days cool down, my coffee routine shifts. It goes from like comforting warm mugs in these cold mornings to getting like a refreshed iced coffee, because here in Melbourne, it is very quickly turning warm. It's like, you know, going to go from earlier this week, I think it was like 40 degrees or so in the, what would that be, like early morning, to now I think it's like 75 degrees or so right now. So getting a lot of different options for my coffee is incredibly important. But no matter the season, hot or cold, Trade is going to recommend beans that I love. I will roast them to order, or they will roast them to order and deliver them right to my door. And then I can grind them up and make whatever coffee I need to make based on the day that I'm feeling. So it's really like having my favorite cafe on standby without ever having to leave home. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the US for both hot and cold coffee drinkers. They've sourced the best beans from over 50 top roasters across the United States. For cold brew lovers, they've teamed up with 15 roasters to create a special collection made just for cold brew, so every cup comes out smooth and delicious every single time. They even have easy to use curated gear so you can brew at home with better flavor and value than any cafe or bottled brew. You just take their quiz, and in under 1 minute, they'll recommend coffees you'll love. If that first bag isn't quite right, there is no problem whatsoever. They are absolutely going to replace it for free until they nail it. Again, like, the best part of Trade is just the ease of use here. The quiz is so easy to just allow you to learn what you're going to like if you're not necessarily a coffee fan. If you are a coffee fan, it's even easier at that point. So I love trade. I love what they bring to the consumer every single day that they send out bags of coffee across the United States. Right now, Trade is offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/game. That's DRINKTRADE.com/game, GAME, to get 50% off 1 month. Drinktrade.com/game. Okay. Bryce, my next choice here, because you stole mine so
You're welcome.
rudely,
You're welcome.
it's really just kind of gross on your part, to be honest. Do you have another all NBA guy?
I have
'Cause I was gonna
one.
move.
I
Okay, go
don't
ahead.
love it, but Chet was my other all NBA guy.
Okay. So I have Chet on my list and I have Alperen Şengün on
Oh,
my
yeah,
list.
Alperen's a really good name. Yeah.
So it's funny because I think people that listen that listen to the show know I've had like a pretty reasonable outlook on Alperen like this whole time. And I think that Rockets fans who don't always listen to the show on online think I hate Alperen or whatever. I think that getting Kevin Durant is going to be pretty massive for Şengün, essentially replacing Jalen Green with Kevin Durant is going to create so much space and opportunity on the interior for Şengün that I think some of the finishing issues that we've talked about in the past with Alperen are probably going to work themselves out in a pretty real way this year. I think that Şengün is really in for just kind of a massive season at the end of the day. I think we're talking if he's not all NBA, it's just because there are a number of bigs that are all NBA, and obviously we don't do positions anymore. But if Joel Embiid is healthy for some reason, or if if whoever you want to point out among the bigs, Nikola Jokic is obviously still there. Karl Anthony Towns is still obviously there, having made all NBA last year. Then on top of it, there are just all these guards that are going to continue to have strong seasons. Victor Wembanyama is going to take a massive leap. I didn't put Victor as a breakout player because he was already going to make all NBA last year until he got hurt. I just don't see it as a player worth listing on something like this. I think his breakout was last year, frankly. Şengün, on the other hand, you can make the case that the breakout was last year, but he did average 19 and 10. It wasn't a crazy, insane year. And the reason for that really was the finishing to me. Last season, among all players in the NBA, Şengün was just in the 40th percentile, according to Synergy, in terms of percentage at the basket. He only made 54.7% of his layups in total last year. In half court settings, he was at 58.8%, which is a little bit better of a number, but the finishing really just needs to improve. And I think that having the space will give him more open shots at the basket for it to be a little bit easier. I think teams aren't going to be able to collapse as easily down on the block whenever he catches in the mid post. And I think that being able to run fun actions with Kevin Durant, where he can be the screener, he can be the ball handler, being able to run fun actions with Fred VanVleet, being able to run fun actions with VanVleet as the screener sometimes, where it's no longer Jalen Green on the weak side, it's Kevin Durant on the weak side, is going to force way less help going toward Şengün and VanVleet, or Şengün and whoever is the primary action. It can be Amen Thompson if you want it to be. And that's going to lead to all sorts of positive outcomes, I think, for the Houston Rockets. I don't think he's going to be the leading scorer on the team. I think Kevin Durant will obviously be the leading scorer on the team. But I think we're talking about a 22, 23, 24 point per game and 12 rebounds per game, a massive monster season from Alperen Şengün.
Yeah, I struggle so much with the finishing thing too, because it all looks like it should go in. I really buy his skill level. I think he has real strength and he's able to bump dudes.
He's just below the rim is the issue.
Sure. But we've seen below the rim finishers with touch and skill be able to figure it out. And I guess I just look at Şengün and just, I guess because of his passing and feel for the game in other aspects, I feel like his touch and his finishing should be better. because he has like change of pace in his steps and just all sorts of little nuanced things that you want to see a below the rim finisher have like that. I think one of the biggest things with KD is just not getting the full, like not getting the primary attention of every single defense, right? Like defenses, he's still going to be super high on the scouting report, but he's going to get some advantageous matchups now because there's going to be so much attention on KD, or the action is for KD. And then he's the recipient of something where, I feel like I had so many notes from the Rockets Warriors playoff series where it's Şengün is having to work for everything. And not only was he having to work for everything, Sam, he's having to work against, Draymond Green, one of the top 3 defenders in the NBA, to get it, where if there's a Kevin Durant out there, maybe Draymond is guarding KD a little bit more, or you're running actions that gets, a switch or gets his attention off the ball and gets Şengün something easy. So like this is, I hope nobody skews this to the, a way I don't mean it to say, I just think it's going to make his life a little bit easier. And because his life may be made a little easier, it will be even more productive and perhaps more efficient. And again, when we're talking all NBA or even maybe like high level all-star, whatever, wins matter. And this is a team that I think is going to be top 2 or 3 in the West yet again. And so that really plays into it. Also, I also want to quickly mention, at the very least, he is a cog in a very good defensive team. And I think has really improved on that end of the floor. And I think he should be commended for that. And I think it should definitely be mentioned when we talk about Şengün.
Yeah, I agree. He's gotten better on that end of the court for sure. He's really pretty solid within that scheme at this point. I don't think he's like the reason that they're good defensively necessarily, but I think that he works within that scheme and ends up being like a pretty useful defender. Like I wouldn't even like go as far as to say he's like wildly positive defensively, but because I think there are matchups where I think he is quite positive defensively, honestly. I think there are matchups that can kind of take advantage of him defensively, and just in terms of his movement skills and his ability to kind of like just kind of bump guys and end up in trouble there and like having to guard in space and everything. But if he can just kind of camp out in the paint, like he's very good at that at this point. And he's also gotten pretty good at being able to like show and recover when necessary, or play at the level and recover when necessary. Like he does some things pretty well on defense now, I would argue. It's just that there are other things that he struggles with at times. Like it's just kind of matchup dependent with him in a real way. Was 5% below league average in true shooting percentage last year. This is not just like a narrative that we're bringing up here that he can't finish. Like the finishing was a problem last year. At the end of the day, though, I think it's going to improve. I think we're looking at a guy who's going to be above league average in efficiency this season because of the addition of Kevin Durant. I also wonder if just like kind of bringing in, like, I guess what I'm really interested in is how often do they go to the 2 big lineup as well?
Sure.
And or do they continue to look at like smaller groups, given the addition of Dorian Finney-Smith here, who can, guard 5s if they want him to. He can guard 4s. He can, deal with 3s. I wouldn't want him, guarding real perimeter players necessarily at this point, but they just have a lot of options. But he's kind of the fulcrum point to me at the center position that makes their optionality really work. He and Amen's obviously the one that like really makes it work, because he can be a 6'8" or 6'7" point guard, or he can be a 6'7" center, depending on what you need. He just kind of fills all of the gaps. But I think Şengün's gonna have a huge year. Coming off of a massive Eurobasket, obviously. I hope he doesn't tire out. I think that would be one thing that would worry me. Just like full season last year, directly into the playoffs, into Eurobasket this summer, into full season this year. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he doesn't just like totally get wiped by April or whatever. But from a talent perspective, I am very high on what Şengün's going to do this year.
No, it'll be fun, and I'm interested to see like what the rotations that Ime and the staff cook up there with KD is a guy that you can move up and down the lineup a little bit. Jabari has a little bit. Amin has as much as anybody. And then you have a couple backup centers, like you just Tari, all of these guys have a little bit of flexibility outside of, the two small guards. And so it will be interesting to see, going super big, going a little bit smaller. You could go a little bit more floor spacing. You can go a little more, you mentioned DFS. So a lot of options there for Ime to work out and some fun things that they could absolutely do.
You mentioned Chet, and I struggled a little bit with Chet because I think Chet is going to continue to get better and better. And I just don't know if the box score is going to say that necessarily.
Yeah. He wasn't going to be a choice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He wasn't going to be a choice for me. It was like, just as I was looking for names, he came up because I'm like, what if he has an Evan Mobley year, right? Like, what if Victor isn't there? Chet is DPOY because he's the best defender on the best defense, and the offense jump does happen because he shoots the ball better, or maybe SGA, now that he's won MVP, finals MVP, and a title all in 1 year. Well, maybe SGA takes a slight usage step back in the regular season, and Chet takes a step up or something. So I wasn't like all in on it. It was like, I literally have a line between Paolo and Chet, but it was just like the second name I would have come up with for an all NBA situation.
Okay. So I guess I picked Alperen here after you picked Paolo and stole Paolo from me. Unbelievable.
Listen,
Paolo can be both of ours.
We
can share Paolo.
Stop. It is your podcast. If you wanted Paolo that bad, you just could have damn well went first. So
I could have gone first. Okay. Bryce, you go next.
Okay, so
kind of next, I think we're past the all NBA point this year.
Correct. Yes. I'm like on my all-star / like could win an award specifically for one of these players. So I need to ask you this. Does Jalen Johnson count?
It can count if you want it to count, Bryce. Give me the case on Jalen Johnson taking a big leap this year.
So I just think that he was on that path anyway. So this is my tier of guys that I think, if you ask me, like, who are first-time all-stars, and I have a few names here that I really like, Jalen Johnson is at the top of that. This dude fills up the box scores, Sam. Like, just the length, the athleticism, the jumper has to be more consistent. But, man, like, there was times I was watching last year, and I was like, this dude, like, all-around impact is about as good as anybody on this team. And Trey's the driving force of the offense.
On offense, I would argue, yes.
But 19 points, 10 rebounds. So he finishes defensive possessions, rebound over 8 defensive rebounds a game. He can pass. And that's what's interesting about that Hawks team is like, okay, well, who's the backup point guard? And my argument is like, you have a plethora of names that you could choose from, Jalen Johnson being one of them. And it's maybe not like in the traditional sense, not in the Trae Young sense, but you got plenty of guys that can pass the ball, move the ball, and do a little bit of creation. And so I wonder, with that team and the talent that is around it, I don't think that's going to take away from his opportunities. And I do just wonder if they are at the level, let's say they're third in the East, right? Like maybe they jump Orlando at the All-Star break or ahead of Orlando, like, and they need a second All-Star. Like Jaylen, I think, is going to be that guy. If they're that level, it's because Trey's doing Trey things and Jaylen has, ascended into second All-Star level, stratosphere or whatever. So,
yeah, like I didn't list Jaylen here just because I thought that he kind of took this leap last year, frankly.
Sure. Yep.
He was at 19, 10, and 5 last year on 50% from the field, 31 from 3, 75 from the line. I would really like to see him maybe continue to shoot, but the big leap for me on him will be defensively. Can he be just like kind of a, wrecking bull in help defensively if they're going to play Kristaps at center consistently and like have him play and drop, and then you're going to have Jalen Johnson be like the low man a little bit more consistently that needs to rotate across and, always make that rotation. And, how does he guard in space consistently? I think he does so. There are really good reps from Jalen Johnson in space, I think, at times. And then there are other times where you're like, well, that didn't go super well. Like, what's going on here? Like, you just kind of stood up in the middle of the possession and kind of lost your leverage there. So I think that this is a totally reasonable pick. If you think he's going to be an all-star this year, I think that it's a right pick. To me, it's just that I think he was like a borderline all-star last year before he got hurt.
Sure. No, and that's why
I kind of think that that's the level I have him at.
Yeah, I think, and that's fair. I mean, I had two guys that were in this realm of like him and Trey Murphy both were like, I think these guys, like Murphy's all-star argument's a little tougher of no fault of his own, but they were the two guys. I'm like, I don't know if there's, disclaimers here because of the injury aspect of them maybe not jumping. But I mean, they're just, both of these guys are guys that I love. And I think, again, if I'm talking guys that I think are first-time all-stars, they're two of the first names that come to my mind.
Yeah, and really the big thing for Jalen Johnson this year, just stay healthy.
Yeah.
Honestly, just play a full year. That's what I would like to see. Played a full year his sophomore year. Hasn't played one in either his third or fourth year. It would be really, really good if he could just play a full season this year. Okay, so you took Jalen Johnson. I'm going to steal one from you now, as you so rudely did to me earlier. I'm going to pick Ausar Thompson. I think Ausar is going to have a massive season. I think we're talking definitely making all defense. I think we're talking, if he stays completely healthy and plays 65 games, I think we're talking 14, 15 points a game, 8 or 9 rebounds, 3 or 4 assists in all defense. And he is just an absolute savage.
Okay, stop real quick. We did Pistons player stat predictions on the Pistons Pulse a couple weeks ago. Can I give you my numbers? Because I think it's funny based off what you just said.
Okay, go ahead.
14 points, 3.5 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block.
That's amazing. That's so good. Yeah, I think that we're talking about again, just a big leap. I mean, look, that'd be a 50% increase. 15 points a game would be a 50% increase on what he did last year. I think consistently he's just going to keep cutting and attacking the basket and getting out in transition and being an amazing partner for Cade Cunningham out on the break. And, rebounding wise, 6 rebounds as a rookie, 5 rebounds as a sophomore. I think we're going to see that jump. I do. I think we're talking about a guy that's going to absolutely crash the glass. And if I was JB Bickerstaff, I would be telling Jalen Duren, we want you to box out so that Ausar can crash in and get the rebound, because we want to start the break quicker. We want Ausar to get the ball so that you don't have to catch the ball and then get it to Cade or get it to Ausar or get it to Jaden Ivey or whatever you want to do, right? Let Ausar just get the ball and sprint down the court and start the break quicker, to me. And he's a great offensive rebounder, obviously, and everything too. So I think he is in for a big jump rebounding wise.
Do you think that conversation with Jalen Duren is easier if he has a contract or doesn't have his extension locked in?
Much easier if he has a contract.
Okay. I agree with you there. Ausar can absolutely drive transition off the D. The reason my rebounds were a little bit lower was what you just said, though. Jalen Duren is a guy that rebounds really well. Cade's actually a really, really good defensive rebounder. Tobias is actually a good defensive rebounder. With what he has left. And so that's why I was a little bit lower, but there's going to be games where it's 14, 12. And then, I think he's not going to shoot it from 3 this year. I think to expect that level of jump to be a real shooter, I think is too much, but I'm interested to see kind of the decision-making out of the short roll, the decision-making as a pick and roll handler, those type of things. How far can I don't think he's ever a primary on-ball guy, not to the level of Min is, but how far can that stuff grow? Because that would go a long way, especially when you're talking about a guy that's a non-shooter right now.
So the last 2 years, Victor Wembanyama is at a 5x5 game. There hadn't been one in 6 or 5 years until Victor did one in 2024. I'm going to throw a men into this as well. I think one of the Thompson twins this year pops a 5x5 game.
I can see it.
There hasn't. Here's a fun one. There has not been a wing to have a 5x5 game since when, Bryce? When do you think the last one was?
2007.
So 2013, and Nick Batum did it.
Batum.
In 2013. Before that, there had not been a 5x5 game in 7 years. Back when Andre Kirilenko did it, and Kirilenko did it 3 times. Kirilenko was just a savage, kind of crashing the box score and, continually hitting the box score in the way that he did. I think that one of the Thompson twins pops a 5x5 game. That's my prediction. One of those two ends up getting one. And we'll see which one it is. I think both of them could very easily do it, honestly.
And for anybody who, like, when you just look at Ausar's raw stats, I just encourage you to quickly look at the minutes per game. I don't know if it was truly a minutes restriction or whatever, but obviously there was something coming off the blood clots. He only played 22 and a half minutes. And so, like, per 36, he's not a 36-minute a game guy, but per 36, he averaged last year 16, 8, 3.5, 2.7 steals and 1.1 blocks. Now, again, I don't think he's all of a sudden going to play 36, but if he's closer to 28 to 30 a night, if he's not closer to 28 to 30 tonight, I will be surprised this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think we're talking big minutes increase, and we're talking a guy that makes all defense and is like right around, like I said, like 14 to 15, 7 or 8 rebounds, 3 to 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, and it's just one of those dudes that, makes that jump into, oh my God, this is like one of the big, like, impact winning players in the league right now. Much like his brother took that leap last season, in my opinion.
Yep. 100%.
And the only reason that Ausar hasn't taken that leap is probably the blood clot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, when he played last year, he was pretty freaking ridiculous by the end of the year, I thought. Like, if you look at his last, what do we want to call it here? 33 games. He was averaging like 12, 6, and 3 because he was just playing 25 minutes as opposed to playing 22 minutes a night. So I think that that's a huge factor here as well. I think that Ausar with more minutes is going to end up being a guy that, like, really impacts winning and takes a big leap in terms of awards and recognition and everything like that.
Yeah, I love it. No, I mean, he was obviously on my list here, not to be an all-star, but as, awards because of the all defense.
Okay. You are up next.
So, Bryce. I mean, I have Denny on my list here for all-stars, but I feel like we've talked enough about Denny and he's kind of had his breakout. So I don't know that I want to go there. Okay, can I ask you one? I don't know if I want. OG Anunoby was a name that I wanted to talk about. And I don't like.
Give me the pitch here.
So, like, because I think he's going to make an all defense team next year. Like, I wonder if he made it
this year.
I know. I guess I don't think it's breakout. I think it's like he's just going to get his respect type of thing as like the two-way, and maybe he does. Maybe I'm the one that's not giving him enough respect. So I'll actually go here. Brandon Miller coming back for year 3. I'll go Brandon Miller coming off a rookie year where he averaged 17 points. I was super excited about him. Had him super high in our 24, under 24 and 24, whatever it was. I know like the raw numbers from his sophomore year, like he averaged 21, but like all of the shooting percentages were down other than the free throw percentage. I just like, I don't think he's going to jump into all-star because I don't think they're going to be good enough to do that. but I just think he's going to come back this year and kind of be that guy. And I'm hoping on both ends of the floor that I was talking about him being after his rookie year. So, 20 plus points a game on better efficiency, good decision making. Maybe we get to the free throw line a little bit more. And then like the defensive impact and energy that he needs to show to be a real two-way impact.
The only reason that I didn't list Miller was because I just haven't seen like photos of the way his frame looks.
Sure.
And that's like the entirety of the ball game with Brandon Miller, right? If he's stronger and can absorb contact on the interior and can be physical, like it makes life so much easier for him. And that's when the breakout will come. You know what I mean? That's exactly when that is the exact moment when we will see the breakout, is when he goes from being, what was he listed at last year? Like 200 pounds to 220 pounds or 215, 225, whatever it is, right? As soon as he adds that lower half strength to be able to actually like deal with bumps on the interior and be able to finish on the interior and draw fouls, as you said, like Brandon Miller last year only got to the line 2.9 times per game, which for a guy who, absolutely sinks his free throws is a real problem. And on top of it, only made 41.3% of his layups last year, which is a crazy low number for someone as big as he is. It just really comes down to the strength. If I see him in the preseason and he looks bigger and he's able to like play at pace, the funny thing is that like he knows how to play at pace. You know what I mean? He is really good at using those hostage dribbles and playing out of ball screens and being able to get to spots. It's just that oftentimes I think that his body doesn't allow him to take advantage of that skill set yet in the NBA, because guys will just kind of bump him and he loses his balance just like ever so slightly. In losing that balance and that leverage is the entire ball game in the NBA. Yeah. Right. So it's just like a really small thing for me, but as soon as it happens, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? But, is it this year? Is it next year? I don't know. It's kind of my answer. I'm still high on the long-term vision for what Brandon Miller will be. I didn't love what I saw last year, though. Like, I didn't think he took a leap at all last year because the finishing on the interior was just not good enough at that point.
Yeah. And that's why I thought he was eligible for this and why I wanted to bring him back up is just as someone that like kind of believes in I agree with everything you're saying. And, like I have no intel. I've seen no, to know if the strength, we talk about the high hips and the lower body strength and all of that to play through contact on, both ends of the floor, but especially offensively. So, we may see him in the first preseason game and see him bumped off his line. And I may be quickly, going, man, it may not be this year yet again. But I think he was just, as I went through every team, every roster, he was kind of the young guy that I at least wanted to bring up in regards to, a higher pick who, 20 plus point a game potential that I'm still kind of buying into, and maybe had a season where it was a little bit disappointing, not even just the injury, but as you said, maybe we didn't even necessarily love the actual play even before the injury last season.
Yeah. And, it's really, I think Charlotte fans are going to be like disappointed to hear like where I'm at on it. Like, again, I think Brandon Miller is going, this leap is going to happen at some point. It really is just like get stronger. As soon as he puts on that weight and like builds up that physicality, that's when it'll happen. It's just like, I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or whatever, but it's going to happen. I think like I'm still really high on Brandon Miller as a player long-term. I just didn't love what I saw last year. I mean, that Charlotte team is just obviously fascinating for myriad reasons, just in terms of, it feels like to me, they're in like a slight transitional phase, even though they're rebuilding a little bit. Like the guys that they drafted this year are just like very different than the guys they've drafted previously. And, they're still in asset accumulation mode on some level as well. So that's interesting. I like tried to look at the Charlotte roster to see if there was anybody I could pick outside of Brandon Miller, just because I was like, kind of like, okay, like it's just kind of a simple conversation. Is he strong or not? And like I think there's a case for Trey Mann, who just like didn't get his moment last year, but I think he's like a sixth man, and that's who he is. All of these rookies are rookies, and we just don't pick rookies for breakout players, obviously. Like Moussa Diabate, like could end up
I
as their
thought
starting
about it.
center,
I thought about it. Yeah.
and like I really liked a lot of what I saw from him last year as like an active defender and rebounder. I think that'd be a totally reasonable pick for somebody to say here. But they're just a really interesting team. They have so many ball handlers now between LaMelo and Colin Sexton and Trey Mann. And like, again, we saw at Summer League, like Liam McNeely handled the ball a bit, and Brandon Miller's obviously going to want the ball in his hands a little bit, right? And then you have Con Knipple, who's
So you're going to
obviously,
put it
like,
in Con's hands a little bit just to see, right? In
very
terms
capable
of
of it. Totally. So, yeah, I mean, Brandon's a fascinating pick. I just don't know what to do with the Charlotte roster as well. It was like another kind of reason why I was like, maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year. I don't know. But if Brandon Miller is stronger, like he might be an all-star this year. Like I think that's a real potential outcome.
For sure.
Okay. My next pick is Andrew Nembhard.
Love it.
Yeah. Andrew Nembhard's going to get the keys to a pretty awesome offensive infrastructure, as we've seen with Tyrese Halliburton. And whenever we've seen Nembhard get the keys to the castle, it has tended to go quite well in the past. You look at the 2024 playoffs against Boston, for instance, where I thought he was just like absolutely freaking outstanding. Like for that series, I know that they, get swept or whatever and lose all the games, but he goes for 21, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, only 1.8 turnovers, and goes 54, 48, 89. Like that's just completely insane to me. Those last 2 games I thought were unbelievable. Was just they were absolutely unbelievable to me. He dominated. He goes for 32 and 9, and then he goes for 24 and 10 in back-to-back games. Really keeps Indiana in those games without Halliburton at all. He didn't play in either of those games, and they lose both of those games by 3, and they were just like tightly contested, really tough, really, really tough games. Anytime that he's gotten a chance to like really run the show for them, I have loved the signs. I love the pace that he plays at. I love the poise. I love the craft in the middle of the court where his footwork is so tremendous, and his ability to play off of 2 feet is just so elite in so many ways. And it allows him to finish at a really high level from difficult areas on the court, tightly contested areas on the court. And the big question for me is just going to be, what does he look like as a pull-up shooter on some level? Can he consistently force defenders to guard him out there? He's been a little bit up and down throughout his career. Like last year, he shot 29% from 3, which is a pretty real lower point. But I love the pace. He's obviously just like a tremendous passer. I know he's only averaged like 4.6 assists per game. I'm expecting him to average like 7 or 8 assists per game easy this year. His basketball brain is just elite. And the big question for me is like, does he continue to be the great defender, having to take as much offensive load, or do they try and shift some of that responsibility onto like, can you convince Ben Mathurin to just like give crazy energy on defense on the ball at times? I don't know. I'm fascinated. I think he's going to have a monster year. I think we're talking like, he averaged 10 and 5 last year. I think we're talking he averages like 18 and 8 this year. Like I think he goes like big for them as their starting point guard, because I love that infrastructure and I love that scheme.
It makes a lot of sense, and that'll be interesting defensively as well. With Nesmith and with Mathurin, can you put those guys on the ball and tell Nembhard to, play a little bit, like play off the ball, but go be disruptive? I think he'd be awesome kind of playing that center fielder, roamer, disruptor role off the ball as well, where maybe he doesn't have to use quite as much energy picking the ball up full court. But what I love about his game is how physical he is on both ends of the floor. Like we talk about holding your line, staying on your line, not getting pushed off your line. And he does it on both ends. Like as a driver, he's going to stay on his line. And when he's defending you, he's going to hold his line. You're not going to bump him off of that line and create separation. And you mentioned the 2 feet. My notes are, littered with comments about his ability to play off 2 feet. And the other thing, like, I'm fascinated to see is I always talk about how he was understanding of the moment. And when he could like not shoot the ball for what seemed like 2 quarters, and then all of a sudden a big moment came up, whether into the game, during the middle of the game, whatever, and he was ready for the moment to knock down the shot. And that gives me confidence that he's going to be ready for this moment, which is an entire season, right? It is a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 1 game here, but it seems like he has the mental makeup to take on this role of being the primary dude throughout the whole season. I'm sure there's going to be lulls, right? Like, I'm sure he's going to get worn down. It's going to be different, but he seems like he's the type of player and has the right mentality to take on this role and thrive in it, which is going to be really exciting for him and perhaps a Pacers team that's more competitive than some people may think.
Well, the other thing is too that like this is year 4 for Nembhard, right? He's been around for a minute, but because he entered the NBA at 23 years old, like he's not getting this chance at 21 or 22 years old where it's going to be really hard for him to try and figure all this out. Like he's getting this chance. He's going to be 26 in January. And I think he's ready for this. Like I think that he is like genuinely ready to get this opportunity to thrive as the primary option on ball, at least for a team. Like Pascal Siakam's obviously going to lead the team in scoring, I think, with this group, but I think it's really, really critical that he's going to get this chance at like a point where he's ready for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think he's absolutely ready for it. I think that's what's exciting about, that situation for him is I don't think he's being thrust into a situation where it's like going to be too much or too big or anything like that.
Okay. You're up next.
Okay. I'm ready to get to some of the little, like, I'm down to more of like not as big a names. So if you have any more bigger name types players, go ahead. Because I'm going to
one bigger name that I would say is a bigger name more than like a ready-made player right now.
You should probably do that then, because we're going to get a little bit into the weeds with mine whenever I go to my next one.
I have Scoot Henderson.
Okay.
And maybe this is just me kind of wish casting on some level, but I thought that Scoot got better throughout like the middle of last season and like really kind of started to show some flashes that, hey, this might be coming around. You know what I mean? Like if you look at his last 35 games last year, 14 points, 5 assists, 2.7 turnovers, shot 43, 38, 77. So like non-catastrophic numbers, but here's kind of why I want to bring up Scoot as a breakout guy. Like we've seen the breakout from Denny already. Like that occurred last year. Denny's going to be really good. Like if you want to list Denny on this thing, I have no problem with it. But like to me, like that breakout happened already last year, and he's going to be like a 18, 9 and 5 guy or whatever he's going to be. Right. I think with Scoot, what I like most is the infrastructure that they have built for him with just like older vets around. Damian Lillard like is just going to be rehabbing and hopefully just like helping Scoot figure this out this year. Like they have one of the best offensive guards to ever play right there, hopefully in Scoot's ear. Given that Dame seems like really happy to be in Portland, I would imagine that he's going to kind of really just be there to help Scoot this year is my hope. Like that is really what I'm envisioning with Lillard. Right. And then on the other side, like you have Drew Holiday, another vet, right? You have one of the best guard defenders we've seen of the last 25 years who can hopefully kind of get in his ear and help him. And, a guy that played on the ball when he was really young and made an all-star game when he was young playing on the ball. Like Drew Holiday has had these opportunities that Scoot Henderson is getting and figured out kind of quite similarly at a young age, how he kind of had to make this work. Like, if you remember Drew Holiday's rookie season, like, it was not that sweet. Like, it was hard for him. It was quite difficult, honestly. And he didn't really take that leap into all-star status into year 4. Like, if you look at Drew Holiday's numbers, like his first few years, like he was fairly efficient, which was critical, but you know, it was 12 points. It was 5 assists. He shot 44% from the field. He did hit his threes, but didn't take a crazy number of threes. Like, he took 2.5 threes per game. And if you look at like where he was in terms of efficiency compared to league average, he wasn't above average in terms of his overall like scoring efficiency, not just the 3-point shooting, until like his age 27 year. Like, that's how long it took him to get there. So having both Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday in his ear, I think is going to help him quite a bit. And again, like we talk about this all the time, it's so fucking hard for young guards. Like, you look at the history of these young guards across the league and it just takes them forever. It does. Like, it takes them so long to be able to figure it out. But I do think that this is the guy on this list. Like, all these other players I have on this list, like, they're good basketball players. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Andrew Nembhard's an awesome basketball player. Ausar Thompson is great. Paolo is great. Like, there's a chance Scoot is not going to be like a particularly great basketball player. This is kind of his make or break year to me, where if we don't see growth, given the infrastructure that they've built around him, I will be concerned and I will be like, okay, this is just not working out. And, you know, maybe Portland needs to make some decisions here this forthcoming summer. But I think that they've really surrounded him with about as strong of an infrastructure as you could possibly give somebody. And the shooting is coming around. Like, he really started to shoot it by the midpoint of last year. And the decision making was way better last year, I thought, than what it was as a rookie. Like, I thought that he showed real steps last year, even though I think the problem was he was just starting at such a low point because of how bad he was as a rookie, frankly. He was not a very good rookie. But he showed real steps in the areas that I think he needed to show steps in last year. And I think that continuing to get even better infrastructure around him is only going to help him moving forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting in terms of, like you said, the veteran presence and what those guys went through throughout their careers and helping him. You know, you mentioned the defensive infrastructure around him. I mean, that is, you know, you think about, there's certain lineups out there where it's like with Drew and Tumani and Klingon behind him. I mean, that just sets Scoot up to, you know, I'm not saying easy, but to be in a very advantageous situation defensively. And then hopefully there's enough floor spacing around that on the offensive end. So I love Scoot in that draft. I was super high on him. And, you know, I'll be honest, like, I didn't consider him for this as I went through, but I understand. Like, I understand the bet here of the infrastructure, the veterans that are there with him. And I do think that this is a year where, like, you have to see some growth. You know, he doesn't have to all of a sudden become an all-star this year or the guy that, you know, people thought coming into the draft, but
I don't
growth.
think he's going to be an all-star this year. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah. But, you know, taking steps towards that with the jump shot and the defense and the decision-making, the finishing, all of that would be huge, because if it doesn't, I do think then it's going to be easy. You know, we led this episode off with this stuff happens fast in the NBA.
Yeah.
And that, like, it will be interesting to see. I hope for Scoot, obviously, that he does. It's a really interesting name. I like the name. It's fun.
It's a fun name. I think he's going to look better. Like you said, the finishing just remains like purely catastrophic. He was 11th percentile last year, made 49.6% of his attempts at the rim. But I thought that the pacing looked better on his ball screen attacks. I thought that the shooting obviously like drastically improved in a real way. And, you know, I think that having real infrastructure around him, he still is like a real intersection. When I watch Scoot, the problem is not that he can't separate. Like, that he can get by guys. Like, he can play in ball screens. I think that last year he looked better playing in ball screens. and figured it out. So I don't know, man. Like maybe this is just like a last cling of belief here to Scoot, maybe, but I still see, like I said, like he can separate, he can still throw live dribble passes. Like there is still stuff here.
Sure. Yeah.
To make it work.
I'm with it. Like I'm not out on Scoot. It just wasn't like it wasn't one of the names that popped out to me as I went through lists, but I'm with it. It was, like I said, it's fun.
Yeah. So that, again, bigger name is kind of
Yeah.
why I decided to go with that, because I think it makes more sense to go with him next, and then we'll get into some of the guys that you want to talk about, which sounds like you have some like weirder,
not weird,
fun names that I'm excited about.
Yeah, so like my first name's Sam Merrill. Like I just didn't think we should go Sam Merrill before we I didn't want to go Sam Merrill and then back to Scoot Henderson. You know what I mean?
Do you know what the funny thing is? So you have Sam Merrill. I have other Sam Merrill on my list.
What do you mean?
Who do you think I'm referring to as other Sam Merrill?
I don't know.
Who is the player in the NBA most like Sam Merrill that is not Sam Merrill?
That is your favorite?
No, like honestly, I think that who is the player most like Sam Merrill that is not Sam Merrill in the NBA?
I mean, the name that comes to mind is AJ Green.
That's who I have.
Okay, okay, so I have AJ Green on my list as well. I have Ryan Rollins and AJ Green like together, just because like somebody has to play in that backcourt and do some things. So listen, we've talked about Sam Merrill on this podcast. I think people know we're fans. Obviously, there's some changeover. No Ty Jerome, no Isaac Okoro. Max Strus is injured. I realize they brought in Lonzo Ball in the trade with Okoro, but I do think that there is an increase in role for Merrill, perhaps more minutes. He holds up better defensively than you may think, and I just think he's going to be a guy that his impact is going to be, felt, and I think people will see his impact more this year than maybe in the past, along with a slight bump in overall rotation minutes, shots, etc.
So, yeah, I just wasn't sure if he would like shoot more or play more, honestly. Like, I think Sam's an awesome player, and I really like him as a player. God knows we've been probably the Sam Merrill podcast for quite a while now, even going back to the draft when I think I had him in the top 35 of his draft year. Like, I think Sam Merrill can definitely play. I just didn't know if, Ty Jerome's gone, and I guess Okoro's gone too, but like you're bringing in Lonzo. Lonzo is going to play point, obviously. I guess that there might be more shots, but the other thing is that like you're getting full year DeAndre Hunter too.
Sure.
And like DeAndre is going to shoot. Like
I
we
think
know
if
that.
Strus, I don't know how long Strus is out. I think if the Strus injury wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have been as much. It's just like Jones fracture, gonna miss at least the beginning of the season. Like I just, and it's like, okay, Garland and Mitchell are gonna miss some games. Maybe not a lot. I figured between all of those factors, his like instead of what he played last year, 19 and 7, like I thought maybe he'd get up to 25 minutes a night, potentially with the exits and some of the injuries, and maybe that would be enough for his impact to be felt and appreciated a little bit more than what maybe. And again, sometimes maybe this is my perception or my perception of what other people are thinking, but not maybe a guy I feel like everybody always appreciates or understands the talent level and the ability to impact the game.
Yeah, and look, I went AJ Green because I think AJ Green's going to get an even bigger chance to play at the end of the day. Like, I assume that they're going to start Giannis, Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma, and then I guess Kevin Porter Jr. Look, if I was them, I would probably start AJ Green because I really would need a shooter in that lineup, like above Ryan Rollins, who I also think is like a fairly useful, valuable player. I think that AJ Green is more useful or valuable than Ryan Rollins. I think is what I would say in that specific lineup where I feel like you want the shooting that like Kevin Porter Jr. isn't necessarily going to bring at the lead guard spot, given that I think they basically have to kind of give him the keys.
And that Kyle Kuzma is not necessarily bringing consistently at the 4 spot or the 3 spot, excuse me.
Yeah. But like Turner is going to give you some of it at the 5.
Yep.
Which is good. I mean, look, there's just going to be a million backcourt shots available for this team. And I would guess Porter's going to take some of them. I think AJ Green like could very well end up being a guy that surprisingly takes like 10 shots a game and averages like 13 points and, you know, what are we going to call it? Like 3 rebounds and 3 assists or something, shooting like 44% from 3 or whatever he's going to shoot, because he's one of the best shooters in the league. And I also think he does a pretty good job on defense. Like he is in that Sam Merrill mold where he's really smart. I think he moves his feet well, and I think he stays in front of guys, and he's stronger than he looks. Like, yeah, I think AJ Green's going to have a big year.
No, he's on my list, Sam. Like he's right there in this group of guys that I think on different teams, there's roles available, you know, due to roster construction in whatever capacity. Again, like for me, Merrill was some guys exited, even though they brought in Lonzo, and there's an injury there. Okay, there's opportunity for Merrill to go in and really, you know, play more minutes and more impact. You know, I had Rollins and AJ Green here. I couldn't really decide between the two. I love the AJ Green call out, because especially when you're building around a Giannis Antetokounmpo, like give that dude floor spacing, right? The more floor spacing. My guy Omari Sankofa the second, you know, we very quickly made some season award predictions, and he predicted Giannis's MVP this year. And it's like, you know what? Like if that team somehow gets top 4 in the East, top 5 in the East, and you know, like Giannis could have a huge year, and AJ Green would be a great player to have on the court out there with him, providing that floor spacing and that has that gravity.
I think like he and Miles Turner are frankly the 2 guys on the team where I look at it and I go, no matter what, those are the guys that fit with Giannis on the court. Like Gary Trent Jr., I think, is a good enough shooter to fit. Portis's defense is often a question. You know, Gary Trent's defense is often a question. You know, Prince last year, like just was not great on that end of the court. Like AJ Green's like a solid defender, and he's a great shooter, and it just really, really works, I think, whenever he's out there. So AJ was my guy. All right. Who is next for you?
Jay Huff.
Oh, Jay Huff. Give me the Jay Huff takes. I love it.
I mean,
someone has to start.
So I was on a Pacers podcast recently, and we were actually talking about the Pistons, but we got to talk a little bit about the Pacers. And I asked, is Isaiah Jackson good? Like, I literally have nothing against Isaiah Jackson, Sam. I think he's a fine basketball player. But I'm like, when Jay Huff got traded to Indiana, I was like, finally, my guy he's going to get his chance. He's athletic. He's going to run up and down the floor. He can space the floor a little bit. Like, this is the perfect situation for him to go to for a year. And I don't think Jay Huff's the long-term answer at center for the Indiana Pacers. But if you tell me he has a really good season where he averages double digits and knocks down some threes and shoots a decent percentage, catches a bunch of lobs, offensive rebounds, and solidifies himself as the backup center in Indiana, like that is the world I am living in for this upcoming season for Jay Huff in Indiana. I like Jay Huff a lot, and I truly do think it's a really nice match between team, style of play, and player.
I mean, they have 3 years, $8 million left on that contract if they want to keep Jay Huff. So it's absolutely a thing that could work out in a big way, in my opinion. Even if he's just averaging like 10 and 6 and 2 blocks and like playing 30 minutes a night, is like the low usage guy on the court. I'd imagine he's not going to play 30 minutes a night, but you know, even if he's at 25 and he's the starter, I think that, look, we're 1 year off of Isaiah Jackson's Achilles.
Yep.
And I just don't know what that's going to look like. And he's such an athleticism-based player that, you know, I would probably want to play that pretty slow if I was Indiana. So You know, I wouldn't want him playing more than 10 to 15 minutes a night as he kind of gets back and recovers from this thing. So yeah, I like Jay Huff as a pick here. I think that this makes total sense. You know, could end up being a guy that again averages like 10 points, hits a three, you know, blocks a couple of shots per game, plays in drop, and ends up being like a pretty decent fit for what they're trying to do.
Yep. I love it.
Okay. So I was not going to have this guy on here until Bilal Coulibaly got hurt. But I'm going to go Kyshawn George here.
Okay.
And I really don't love typically having like second year guys on this. Like it's not my favorite thing in the world to do.
That summer league defense, Sam. That summer league defense sold you.
I really liked Kyshawn George at Summer League. And I this comes from somebody who like did not really like him as a draft prospect because I didn't love the athleticism.
We debated this. We debated him a lot off air. We had a lot of conversations. Yeah.
And like typically this is a guy I would really like. I just really didn't buy the athleticism at the end of the day, mixed with like the intersection of his strength for a guy that's gonna have to play on the wing. And man, he has sold me. Like he has really, really sold me in a big way. I still am skeptical of what the offensive, role is going to be because he can't finish on the interior at all. And the shooting last year was really up and down. But if he shoots it, man, he's an impact player because the defense is really good. He is so smart and instinctive on that end. He knows exactly where he's supposed to be basically at all times. I think he is so sharp as a player for them. And now, I mean, they kind of desperately need him in the lineup, to be honest with you, because they need somebody who can provide like a smart defensive presence on the court with Coulibaly out for a little bit here. I think that Kyshawn's going to have a big year. I think Kyshawn ends up being like 13, 14 points a game, maybe 13 a game. And I don't know, like 5 or 6 rebounds, but provides solid defensive intensity and is a pretty solid shooter. Like maybe he shoots 35, 36 from 3 on 5 or 6 attempts per game. And I think he ends up being seen as, if not the key, maybe not the key guy there, because I think Trey Johnson's going to have a big year, at least offensively for a rookie. But, definitely, I think it'll be seen as like on the wing among their guys. I think it'll be like Kyshawn, Trey, and Coulibaly, whatever Coulibaly will be when he comes back.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit with the Wizards just because there's so many young guys on the roster. I was like, who do I pick? This is fun because this wasn't a guy I would have expected for you. But the growth and what he's been able to show, excuse me, I'm sorry, has been really exciting from Kyshawn George. And we kind of raved about the summer league defense. And yeah, that is a good point with Coulibaly not being there kind of to be that defensive wing stopper. Kyshawn's now going to get a lot of that put on his plate because there's not a whole lot of other guys to do that. Like you look up and down, even as young guys, that's not really a lot of these guys' strengths is their perimeter defense. So he could be due for a really nice season, a two-way season, especially if he's able to knock down shots on the offensive end. So that's just a fascinating roster there in Washington with all the young players and then the couple of vets.
I mean, I like Chris Middleton's going to have to start for them, obviously. Like I'm guessing their starting lineup is going to be like Middleton, McCollum. I would guess Kyshawn George, Alex Sarr, and maybe Trey Johnson. Like, do you start just like 4? Do you start 3 wings in CJ? Like, I mean, they don't really have like a true 4. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Sarr is going to play the 5, so
they also don't have another like center that I mean, that's the one thing I liked about JV last year was, being able to play Sarr a little bit at the 4 and let him, somebody else take. I kind of just realized that now that we're talking about it, they don't have that kind of, The roster is something, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, like their over under win total this year is 21.5. It is not the lowest in the league, by the way. They are like third lowest in the league. Look, like I think it's going to be a battle between them and Brooklyn, but like, I mean, Brooklyn at least has like some. I mean, I know that they have Middleton and McCollum, but like, I don't know if those guys are there the whole year. Brooklyn at least has like a couple guys that like have a chance to be there the whole year. Yeah, this is a we'll do over unders. I don't even know if we're doing them next week now. We've kind of switched around some scheduling that I'll have to tell you about off air. But I think the Wizards are like under on win total this year.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're not going to be interesting to watch because they have so many fun young guys. Like I am genuinely really excited to watch Trey Johnson. I'm genuinely really excited to see like if Cam Whitmore can come through on like, do you start Whitmore as like a power 4? Honestly, like my guess is no, but he's probably the closest thing you have to a 4 on your roster, frankly. Like I just don't know, man. It's a weird roster.
Yes,
it's a really weird roster. Okay. I don't know what who do you have next? Do you have anybody next?
Yeah, I have a few more names. I'll throw out a couple. So like in Minnesota, I like Jalen Clark. Let me take that. I like both guys. I would lean Jalen Clark, but it seems like the organization is probably going to lean Terrence Shannon Jr. Would you agree with that, at least in the first crack at it? Or do you think they both get a chance? Either way, I think one of those guys gets a big role in the rotation, and whichever one it is, I think ends up probably having a decent year. I just love Jalen Clark's defense. I also like Terrence Shannon Jr.'s energy. I think one of those guys pops in Minnesota this year. I would probably, if I had to put money on it, I'd probably put TSJ because I think he's the one that's going to get the chance. But I may be misreading that. Am I off, Sam?
No, I think you're right. I think that's the most likely outcome. I think you're right that they will both get a chance, is what I would say. I think those are good picks. I think that one of those two guys will probably pop. It's funny. One guy I really wanted to put on here, and I just like kind of didn't know what to do. I think Dereck Lively, like in terms of when he's on the court, is going to be like, frankly, awesome. Like, I think he's going to be totally fantastic and is going to like showcase that he is one of the like really awesome young centers in the NBA. And they also have Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford, and I have no idea what that's going to look like.
It's funny. He was on my list last year for a break because like I was just so high on him coming off his rookie year. And then obviously, the injury and all of that. I'm interested to see with Lively what it looks like without. I don't think he needs a Luka level player, but I'm interested to see what it looks like with like who is he running ball screens with and how good are those guys. But I think Lively's versatile enough that, obviously there's not going to be 2 on the ball as much without Luka Doncic, but Lively's still a lob threat and an offensive rebound guy. And then obviously the defensive impact. So, listen, I had 2 other Mavs guys. Like I had Max Christie and Najee
Christie's probably the safer bet just because like there's a role there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with Lively, I just think he's so good that like he's gonna have to play at the end of the day. Like I think he's just gonna like work his way into that, rotation at a high level and play 20 to 25 minutes. But I can't sit here and tell you that I know that for sure. Like he could end up being the odd man out and be like a 13-minute a game guy because they figure out that no, they have to play Anthony Davis at center and they have to play, Gafford minutes here and there. Like I just don't know the way that front court's going to work out.
It's we've talked about it a lot, so that one's interesting. Which they signed Dennis Smith Jr. today. That was an interesting signing. So, but they just got a bunch of different guys. I feel like they're going to battle out in camp for the backcourt in Dallas. I I mean, another like my guy, everybody knows, Deron Holmes II is a guy I love. But essentially it's his rookie year. So like that's almost it's a little unfair with that. I'll throw like Justin Edwards in Philly, like carving out like can he carve out a bigger role, or is what we saw last year kind of the max? Ryan Dunn in Phoenix, your guy Flip in Utah, like coming, can he build off a big summer league? We're just
I was trying to figure out Utah. Like, I think somebody pops
there's
there.
got to be a name, right?
Like, I honestly kind of wanted to say Cody Williams, and like I don't know if I feel great about that. Like based off of what we saw last year. It's just that, I think Flip is probably the right answer in terms of just the safe pick. We know he's going to be productive. He's a good player. Probably averages double figures this year at least. But yeah, like I don't know. Like that's a weird one to me.
Yeah, that was the rebuilding teams were ones that I struggled to come up with the name that I really love with a few of them. So, but that's I think that was about all of my names.
Yeah, I mean, kind of rolling through. I mean, I think Keon Ellis is another name that we could bring up for the second year in a row.
I stay away from
I
stay away from Sacramento. I refuse to name a king. I'm bitter right now there.
They just need to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I'll give you one name that I really thought about here. I think Nigel Hayes is like an NBA rotation player.
So I was going to bring him up, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to talk intelligently enough about his game. But it seems like the opportunity is absolutely there. Like I remember Nigel Hayes from Wisconsin, but I can't I'm not going to front like I followed his overseas career and can talk intelligently about what he is now.
Yeah, so like he played for Fener over in Turkey last year, and really like the leap has come over the last like 2 years. Realistically, like he has become like a pretty real volume 3-point shooter that I feel like okay about whenever he like steps away and takes threes. Like he shot 41% from 3 in EuroLeague last year in 39 games. Like he was like on it last year. He's kind of like a mismatchy post threat at times, which is what we saw at Wisconsin as well. I just kind of think that, he's also super long. Like he's like a 7'3", 7'4" wingspan, if memory serves. He's pretty solid on defense. He can shoot it, and they just like desperately need somebody there in Phoenix to be able to like come into a role and play the 4. Like he and Ryan Dunn are like the two guys, and he's just like kind of a better basketball player than Ryan Dunn right now. Whether or not that means that, look, they have like a 1-year connection to Nigel Hayes, you know what I mean? Versus Ryan Dunn, where they have for 3 more years after this one. Like, do they put real minutes into Ryan Dunn to be able to develop him? But I think Nigel Hayes Davis is like this year's Yabusele. Like, I think he is able to come in and like play as a rotation player right now. Like, I think he is very capable of that in the NBA. Hopefully it works in Phoenix. Phoenix is a messy situation, obviously, but yeah, like he is somebody that can like genuinely play the 4, and like they don't have one of those guys on the roster outside of maybe if you wanted to call Ryan Dunn a 4, or I guess Rasheer Fleming as well, but like he's just drastically better than Rasheer Fleming right now at basketball.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, he was a name that I felt like I probably should have put him down and then just, had you do this, but obviously you had him on your list as well, but it makes a ton of sense for him to be here.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, if we're talking like true breakouts where like guys like don't know probably or remember Nigel Hayes Davis from Wisconsin, yeah, I'm excited to see him. Miami is another one that I really struggled with. Like I almost thought about saying Jovic again, just because I'm intrigued by the skill set. Like I remain interested in him as a player. I almost said Davion Mitchell as well.
I thought about that,
but I think I just want to see a little bit more evidence on that. I think it's Khalil Ware is another guy that like could theoretically break out in a real way. The other team was Boston. Like it was just hard for me to say any of these guys are breakout guys.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Pritchard probably had his breakout year last year. Finally, Anthony Simons has just like kind of always been a scorer. Like we know what he is. Like if he averages 24 a game, I don't really know that that's a breakout. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One other real quick thing we didn't mention on the Cavs, just to build on, is Garland's not going to be there for the start of the season either, right? He's coming off the surgery for his big toe from the playoffs.
Yeah, so they're saying like uncertain for training camp, right?
Okay.
And then it was 4 to 5 months in June. So it's like the start of the
Right on the
season's
brink.
like right
Okay.
around the
Okay.
window.
All right.
So yeah.
Okay.
But
No,
I mean, it's
okay.
possible.
So back to Boston. Yeah, like I had every intention of doing like a Jaylen Brown thing. And then it was like, okay, well, he was what, second team all NBA
Yeah, right.
2 years ago. And it's like, okay, well, 3 years ago, I guess. I'm like, and 3 straight all-stars, 4 of the last 5. Like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sound
I
like
mean,
an
he won
idiot.
finals MVP.
Yeah.
Like
I'm gonna sound like an idiot if I try to do this. Even though I think he could have like a monster year, I'm gonna sound like an idiot trying to do this. So I discouraged myself from that.
look, like we'll talk about Boston when we do over-unders like in a week or whatever. Or a week and a half. I can't remember when we put it on the schedule, but like I think they're going to be better than people think, is what I would say. Like that's kind of my take on them. I think they're going to be better than people think. Like I think their win total is like right around 500. I might be inclined to take the over, honestly.
That one will be fun. I'm excited to do that because I did some I've done some research recently on the average win totals for each position in the conferences. And so I'm excited to put that to use whenever we do our over unders. Like if you think Boston is 7th in the East, I'll be able to tell you what the average win total over the last, I think I did the last, I don't know how many ever seasons for the 7th place finisher in the East. And be interesting to see if that changes any of our over under decisions as we go through that.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I love when you bring the research. It's always the best. Okay. That's all the names I had on my list that I think we've gone through. What about you?
Nope. I'm out.
Okay. So the plan originally was to do over under starting this weekend. That's not going to happen. We're going to hold those for a little while. And maybe wait a minute. Honestly, a big reason why is like I'm kind of waiting on the Kuminga and Grimes things is a key here, because both those numbers will be contingent upon those guys and figuring it out. So we might hold for another week on those. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about at a later date. We have a fun announcement on Sunday that we will get out there to you guys, but beyond that, I'm excited that this felt like to me kind of the end of the off season a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we're firmly getting into 2025-26 preview content now, and I'm like ready to go. Like I'm like ready for this thing.
I saw O2 Amari tweeted that the Pistons media day is the 29th or what, it doesn't matter, coming up in 10 days. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like we have one more episode we have to get through. And we had a pretty good episode this week, but especially when you're doing like a single team content, sometimes the off season can be a little bit tough to generate, because we can't talk about Steve Ballmer and Kawhi and the Clippers over there for 45 minutes to start episodes. So, but the press conference, the talk of training camps, all of that, I'm like, okay, we're here. Even preseason basketball, we can get something, some content out of that. So I am very excited for this to start up.
Bryce, tell the people about all the things you have going on.
Yep. At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, over on the Substack. Make sure you check that out anytime your favorite team plays the Pistons this upcoming season. The Pistons Pulse podcast. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We have some stuff brewing over on that side for draft coverage already. Bryce and I will be back on Sunday for sure. We will definitely be recording. But that's all we got for now. So until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.